Being a good engineer alone is not enough. I was a hardcore engineer for the first 5 years of my career, but it wasn't until year 5 that I figured out that how much money I could make and how much impact I could have in my role wasn't fully tied to my technical skills. About 5 years in my career, I started working in consulting and in sales. And what I learned is that if you want to make money in this industry and you want to get promoted and you want to do interesting things, being a good engineer alone is not enough. You need to be able to sell yourself, sell your ideas, and lobby for yourself in a corporate setting. And that's what I talk about today. I have a great interview with Ramsey from the We the Sales Engineer podcast, where we really unpack this idea of sales, selling as an engineer, as somebody working in a company to advocate for yourself and get shit done. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, today we've got a very special video coming out. I'm joined by I don't know if world famous, but at least North American famous Ramsey from the We the Sales Engineers podcast. Oh no, he's got some, I don't know.
I would say SE famous.
SE famous.
I don't think anyone outside the SE world would know me, but yeah, thank you.
Hey, I bet we got some SEs watching, so you're famous to them, man. So we're joined by Ramsey, and we're going to have just a conversation today about why sales skills are really important and valuable to engineers and tech workers, not just those tech workers who want to become sales engineers. Obviously, if you want to be a sales engineer, you need to know a little bit about sales, but even more broadly, the benefits of knowing those basics of how to sell yourself or how to sell an idea in your organization and what that can do for engineers trying to grow their career. So thanks a lot for joining us today, Ramsey.
It is my pleasure.
Well, before I start peppering you with questions, let the folks know who you are, where they can find you, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Ramzi Marjaba, sales solutions specialist at a company called Keysight. I'm also the founder of We the Sales Engineers, which I founded. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to use it to get better as a sales engineer. There weren't any resources out there, so I started my own because I felt I sucked at the job, and I've gotten better. So if people were watching or listening to this, I'm better now. So I know what I'm talking about. But yeah,
he does know. Yeah. He does know what he's talking about. And in fact, fun fact, myself, I was not in pre-sales just about 3 years ago. I was working in professional services and delivery, and the gateway for me getting my first pre-sales job was Ramsey's show. I mean, knowing how to speak the language, like really learning about the day-to-day of that job is super valuable. So check out the podcast if you are interested in becoming an SE, or if you're just curious about what SE life is like. It's a really valuable resource. Help me snag a new job. So I'm eternally grateful.
I believe, and I am biased, that I think that's the purpose we're here. Learning about sales engineering in general, whether you want to become a sales engineer or not, would help everybody in their current role. So check it out. I'm trying to sell my podcast right now, but check it out. It's only an hour.
No. Hey, we're talking about sales. It's okay to sell a little bit. And I agree with I just got to say, I agree 100% with what you said. Like knowing how to sell and how to be an SE, but also even as a customer, knowing like what motivates SEs, how they're going to come to the conversation, how you can get the most out of your SE resources is really important too, because we're at the end of the day, SEs are here to partner and help you make the right decisions for your company. So
yeah. And even on an individual basis, like not customer, like as an individual.
Oh yeah.
I need to be able to sell something, and we'll talk about that, I guess.
So let's start there, right? I think engineers, I certainly had a really bad idea of what sales is. I thought of a used car salesman, like everybody, or Wolf of Wall Street, right? Some scamster. But now that I've been doing it, I understand it's actually much different than that, especially today. Sales has changed a lot, and today sales is much more about helping people, I think. So how do you define selling or sales in the world as you see it?
Well, sales is the process of solving a business problem and getting paid for it. Sales engineering is the process of solving a business problem with technology and getting paid for it. So that's, in short, the definition, and we can dig into it, but that's how I like to start.
Yeah. That's how I look at it too. Like, I think it's one of those things that people can really overcomplicate, but it's not so complicated. It's problem solving, resulting in a transfer of money at some point, right? That's really what it is.
That's why the best salespeople I've worked with are formerly engineers, because it's all about solving problems, right? It's just we're switching from solving like technical problems to solving business problems, solving human problems, debugging the human versus debugging the technology, which is a lot harder, I find.
Yeah. So I talk to a lot of people that are early in their career trying to break into sales engineering or tech in general, right? We just spent a half hour before this conversation talking about certifications. That's a great way for somebody to kickstart their career, but just getting a certification is not enough for somebody to snag their first job, right?
Yeah.
What do you think when it comes to like selling yourself in an interview, right? What are some things that people can learn from SEs like you or me to make sure that they communicate well and can secure a job, or maybe that first job, convincing somebody to give them that shot? What would you say to people like that?
There's a lot of things, but let's just keep it basic. I mean, a lot of times when sales engineers try to sell something, we're talking about value. The product we're trying to sell brings value to the customer. Right? And if you're someone trying to get a job, you're the product, yeah, and you need to show your value to your employer, who is your customer. Right? The employer at this point is trying to buy your services. You're the customer. You're the vendor. Employer is the customer. So how do you show value? Well, a lot of sales engineers or whoever you talk to, we talk about like the feature of something. Like, hey, I know AWS. That's a feature, right? The value is what you can do with that, and what have you done in the past for other employers or universities, or just at home for people. So that's where you show your value. Like, I used AWS and saved my employer 20% of the time instead of just trying to configure something on site. We just did it in the cloud. Save them that. That's the value that you're bringing, right? Because anybody can say, I know AWS. Not anybody can articulate what they've done with that information.
Yeah.
So that's one thing they should learn from sales engineering. And also the second thing I would say is storytelling. Engineers in general, I find, are all about facts, right? And facts are great. No one cares. People don't buy because of facts. They buy because of feeling. So if you're trying to sell yourself, you're going to have to be able to find ways to tell stories to your customer, who is your employer at this point, of how you've helped them. Like, what are the struggles that they were going through, or what are the struggles that you were going through, and how you've overcome them for yourself or for other people. So these are the two main things I would focus on. There's a million other things, but
sure,
these are the two things.
I think that's an awesome starting point. And I think like the people talk about a labor market, right? When you are interviewing for a job, you are selling your labor, right? That is what you're selling. And like Ramsey's saying, like the way that you can articulate that and make a manager feel, if you can build trust with that manager throughout a conversation or via work that you've done, that's how you sell that labor. That's how you get somebody to give you that job offer. And so it's very important. And you know what I'd love so I think in sales, so if we're trying to sell something to a client or influence a client to adopt a solution, we might research that client. We might look them up on LinkedIn. We might learn about their company. I think that skill of discovery before a meeting applies to sales, and it also applies to the job search too.
Oh, yeah.
You hire people, right? Or you've interviewed people. What do you want a candidate? What kind of discovery should a candidate be doing before they try to convince you to give them a job?
Well, at a minimum, they should look up the website. And so I have a video. It's called the top 10 red flags for interviewing, and people should check that out because
great video.
Thank you. It's a long list, but if there's a freemium, I want them to download that freemium and play with it. Not when they're talking to a recruiter, but when they're talking to the hiring manager, at least. So that if the hiring manager asks, like, oh, what do you know about us? Like, oh, I downloaded your freemium. Right? They might not ask if you downloaded the freemium, but the fact that you told them, like, oh, I downloaded the freemium and played with it, you just already differentiated yourself from a lot of people, right? Know who the CEO is, because they might mention them. Like, oh, someone said this. Like, all right, who's that? It's like, oh, is that your CEO? That's your CEO, right? Just shows that you actually work with them. That's at a minimum. What I like to do when I'm interviewing is download white papers, look at use cases, um, watch YouTube videos. So basically, any information, any free information I can get my hands on, I usually do it. I've even done where, in order to download a freemium, you can ask for a demo. A lot of websites like, hey, ask for a demo or request a demo, and you put in your information. I've actually done that, and I've jumped on calls with salespeople just to get more information from the company. And what ends up happening is that they would refer me back to the hiring manager because I'm going through these extra steps and doing that. Some people would think it's a waste. You're wasting the salesperson's time, but the salesperson wants a sales engineer badly, which is why they're hiring. So you're actually doing them a favor.
Yeah, I think there's two angles of it, right? Is exactly what you're saying. Like, showing up prepared obviously allows you to influence a manager that you could be a good fit because you have a better idea of what they need, like what their product or their team might want. But past that, just the passion and the interest and knowing that a candidate cares enough to do research before you even extend a job offer, that builds trust with a person. That's what you're doing in an interview, is trying to get a manager to trust you to join their team. And I think that's a great starting point.
And one thing that engineers don't do very well, I find, again, is that they're too humble in what they do. They don't want to show off. But if you've done all that work, find a way to slip it in there humbly that, oh, I did download your freemium. I jumped on a call with one of your salespeople. I looked at this white paper. I looked at that white paper. It was interesting. So find ways to show the work that you've done, because it doesn't always come up in question. And if you keep it to yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice.
I'm going to tell you, this is a major power move that I pulled in an interview last year. I'm going to tell you about. So I'm interviewing for this company. I won't say the company. And it's kind of a new product, and there's no information online about it. Like, I'm trying to research it, but it's a startup. Nothing is public, nothing on YouTube, nothing on Google that would allow me to understand what their product actually does. So I showed up to the interview, and they asked, what do you know about the product? And I said, honestly, I know the marketing, but I don't know anything about your product. And I think that if I were to join the team, one of the first things I would help you with is figure out how to get more information out there about your product for engineers like me who are looking it up and who are curious. Because right now, people that are interested in your product can't find it. And I did move forward in the interview. I didn't take the offer, but I think like that's real gold. If you can not just learn about the company, but identify a problem that you can help with when you take that role and bring that up in the discussion. It worked for me. Now that takes some confidence. You might not want to do that if it's your first job and you're still figuring out things, but be honest if you think you could help with something like that with a manager.
Something else you can do is reach out to someone who works for that company.
Yeah.
If you don't want to pull that power move, it's like, oh, you don't have any information out there, I would actually fix that for you, which is a great way actually of doing interviews. And if they don't like that initiative, then you shouldn't, like, they're not going to like additional initiatives you do within the company. And when you're interviewing for a company, you have as much power to say no as they do. And so these are things that red flags that you need to look at from the other side, that they don't want you to have initiative. If that's okay with you, great. If that's not, then you say no. You don't have to take every offer. You don't have to take every interview, especially if you have a job. If you're like laid off and you need a job desperately, then that's a different story and it's a different discussion. But generally speaking, you have the power to say no as much as they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, interviews go both ways, especially these days. It's a competitive labor market, and fortunately, workers kind of have more choice than they have in a while. So there's the job aspect. I think sales, when it comes to a job search, obviously there's overlap there.
Yeah.
I know I've been when I get the job, you start getting engaged on your team. You might have a project or initiative that you want to kick off internally within your organization, something that you need to influence leaders on your team. Maybe you're even working with a great SE like Ramsey or an SA like myself to learn about a new initiative, but you as an engineer maybe don't have the influence or the power to sign to buy it. Maybe you don't have the budget and you need to go ask your management for that. What do you see working for people that are internal to an organization, maybe partnering with you, maybe a champion in an account that's excited about a product that you're bringing to them. What would you say to them for how to think about influencing their leaders and their budget holders to execute on this project that they know will help their organization?
So every person in a company, depending on what level they're at, has different set of requirements and different set of needs. Me as an individual contributor, I have this set of needs. My manager has other set of needs and other pain points. So if I want to buy something to solve my problem, I have to show my management team, their management team, what's in it for them. So I have to translate like, hey, I'm working overtime every day to get this stuff done for you, right? Whether they're paying me overtime or not, that could be part of the issue. Like, hey, you're paying me overtime. If we get this, you won't have to. Right? That's one problem. That's one business model. Like they don't want to pay you overtime. They have to. You just solve their problem. And if paying you overtime is more expensive than buying that product, they're going to go for that product. So in the end, you're going to have to figure out what's in it for them, and you're going to have to sell upwards. And that comes with every single thing. Like I studied engineering, so I don't have to talk to people. Right? And as soon as I joined Alcatel-Lucent, I realized that my job is to talk to people. Sure, my job is also to, like, I was in support, is to solve problems, but then I have to convince the customer that I solved their problem. So it's just learning the communication skills, learning to understand what the other person cares about. It's like being married. Like, what is the other person, having a girlfriend, having a boyfriend, whatever it is? If I want them to do something, what's in it for them? Why should they do it? What's the benefit that they would get out of that? Right? And then you can work with if you're working with a sales engineer from the vendor side, work on formulating an email that you can just forward it to your manager, or you can work on doing a demo internally to your management team on how to solve the problem that they have, not your problem, because they don't care about your problem. They care about their own problems. So does that answer your question?
It does. I think so. Right. I mean, I think the point really is, even as an engineer, I know some of us just want to lock ourselves in a closet and write code all day,
Yeah.
But eventually you're going to have a project, or you're going to have an initiative or a product that you think will help you or your team or your company. And those sales skills of how to influence your leadership, that's a right choice is valuable, whether you want to have a career in sales or whether you just want to become a leader in technology.
Well, if you want to raise, right,
yeah,
that's a sales process. If you want to be part of a project that you're not a part of and you need to convince someone to let you in, that's a sales process. If you want to start a project of your own, that's a sales process. Basically, anything you do where you're talking to another human being, there's some sales that's involved. Some are easier than others. Those you have a good relationship with, the sales processes could be like, hey, can you do this for me?
Yeah.
But if it's someone that you have a bad relationship with, and that's something that engineers in general can learn about from sales engineers, is building relationships. Like, Trevor, if I want something from you and I've never met you, I can't just walk up, or if let's say I want a girl's number. I just saw her at a bar. I don't walk up there and say, hey, can I get your number? Which I never did, because I wasn't good.
Me either.
But if you want someone like my wife, I worked on her for a year, building that relationship to get her number, right? So it takes time, and it's not immediate. Sometimes you have to invest more time in it to build a relationship, especially with the right people. Like, who are the right people at your company? And I'm not talking about brown nosing or anything. You can be strong, you can be honest to yourself, and still build relationships with people that may be a little bit difficult to build relationships with. Is it worth you being able to take care of your family? Because that's how I see a job. A job is something I do to help me take care of my family.
Yeah. Human beings are really funny. The way that we make decisions, and the way that we don't really make generally conscious decisions that I trust Ramsey and I want to work with Ramsey. It's something that happens organically. It's something that happens naturally. I think for me, the best way that I build trust with people that I know, whether it's my girlfriend or a customer, is really just showing up being honest and being really authentic and telling them when I think I can help them and when I can't. And people respect that, whether you're selling a product or whether you're trying to get a promotion or a raise or whatever. So I think go ahead.
I was just saying, think about us, right?
Yeah.
2 months ago, we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
Right. And we started building that relationship slowly. Initially, it was just messaging on LinkedIn. You were commenting on my stuff. I was commenting on yours. And then sooner or later, it's like we reached out to each other. Hey, you want to chat? That's how it started. And then you want to be on my podcast? And then do you want to collaborate? Right. So we built that relationship slowly, and it has nothing to do with sales. And we didn't ask like, hey, do you want to move in with me? No, we're asking for small stuff. And then hopefully at some point, this relationship can blossom into something bigger. Or it might not. It might remain this way forever. Not a problem. Because we're both happy with it.
Hey, I hope it becomes something bigger, Ramsey. I want any opportunity to work with you I can get, man. After the last couple of months, it's been a lot of fun getting to know you, buddy.
I appreciate that. And that's the thing about when you're an engineer, we are not thinking about building relationships. Mm-hmm. We're thinking about solving technical problems. And it's much easier to debug a technical problem than it is to debug a human and what they want. Because humans lie. If I ask my wife what's going on, she says nothing. I'm like, shit, now I have to figure something out. Like, why? I don't know. I said the S word. I don't know if I'm allowed, but hey, you can bleep it out there.
It's YouTube. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah. So now she doesn't always say like, yeah, no, this is what's wrong with me. Right. And I don't have to debug, or now I have to figure out a solution. Technology usually has logs, lots of logs telling you like, oh, this is what's wrong. Figure it out. And so, yeah.
There is a study from, and it's one of my favorite studies, from the Carnegie Institute of Technology. They're a really popular and well-established engineering and technology school in the United States. Excuse the dog. And they have the study where they looked at high earners in the United States, and they kind of broke down the skills that they needed to get raises and to get compensation improvements. Just a moment.
That never happens.
That never happens, right? It does when you have a 125-pound shepherd living in your house. All right. So in this Carnegie study, the point of it really is that they determined via this study that 85% of your financial success is driven by your soft skills and your emotional intelligence, not your hard skills, right? Being the best engineer will take you so far, right? Being the smartest person in the room will take you so far. But if your goal is to make money, provide for your family, be well compensated, you will hit a ceiling with those technicals. Unless you go start a company or something, you generally will hit a ceiling with those technical skills and those soft skills.
Start a company. Even if you're right. If you don't have soft skills, you can't do it. And I have a story about that. There was one engineer at my previous company that I hated. I hated because he sold himself like there's no tomorrow. He did we were in support, and there was one ticket that was very well known, one issue that was very well known, and it happened often. And whenever that ticket came in, we just say, known, close. So this guy, no one else on the team would take these tickets on because they were boring. This guy would take all the tickets, and by the end of the month, he has 100 critical tickets closed. We have 5 in total, and he would use that to sell. Like, oh, I closed 100 tickets. So talking about the impact, I mean, you can spin almost anything to be an impact, but that was his. I closed 100 tickets, but and my manager fell for it, right? And I learned at that point, like, as an engineer, he was very vocal about what he's doing. I'm closing hundreds of tickets. I had another guy on the team on the other end of the spectrum who would take the hardest tickets, would come late, but work late, work nights, and he would just like solve the hardest tickets, and it would take him like a couple weeks to solve it. So he solved 1 ticket a month. The other guy sold 99. My manager loved the SE I was solving 99, and he was telling me that he thinks that the other friend of mine who was working on the hardest tickets is slacking because he wouldn't include them on the emails that he was sending to the customers or to the first tier support. He didn't know anything that my colleague was doing. Right? And that's the other end of the spectrum. I mean, I don't want you to be that sleazy guy that everyone hates. Like, I mean, I don't care if people hate me or not, if I'm doing my job right. But that guy, I just didn't think was a good engineer in general. I want you to be a good engineer who highlights their impact for their customer versus being the good engineer who doesn't say anything, then gets laid off because their impact is not showing, or the bad engineer who talks about all the great things that they've been doing.
Yeah. The word that comes to mind for me when you describe that engineer is optics, right? Like there is a difference between the impact that you really have in your organization and the optics of that impact. Some people are really good at selling the optics of what they do, and their impact is actually not great. Some people are super high impact, but aren't great at selling and getting the optics and getting the attention that they deserve. So like what that guy did was measure what he did in a really clear, quantifiable way, and show it to a manager in a way that had great optics, you know. And of course, like his impact may not have actually been there. He was just taking the easy tickets and stacking them up over time. But you should, I think most people should try to do both. Try to have a big impact and be aware of how to measure that and communicate it to your management in a way that is, you know, you can be rewarded for the work that you do.
The easiest way I've found to highlight what I'm doing is just to CC my manager on occasion on these big emails. Like, I don't have to go out and tell, like, hey, Mr. Manager or Mrs. Manager, I just did this stuff. No, it's like, all right, we would just resolve a strong ticket. I would CC my manager, and not to like show off or anything, but if his management asked them about this important ticket, he would have an answer. Right? It's so yeah, that's that guy would remind me of a used car salesman. We started the conversation like that.
Cheap tricks.
Yeah, like, you know, hide some stuff, highlight some stuff, and, you know, hope for the best. And he conned my manager at the time. Right? He couldn't con anybody else. So it just worked once. But yeah.
Yep. All right, Ramsey, this has been awesome. I think this actually would be very helpful to somebody who's trying to figure out, like, you know, it's more than just getting a cert, right? We have to know how to build those relationships and how to influence the people around us if we want to get interesting work done. What else would you say to people, whether it's about sales engineering, sales in general, anything we haven't covered that you think people should know?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk for hours about this, but if you're looking for a job or for anything, think about the impact you're having at your current company and beyond just the job description, like supporting customers. What does that mean? I've supported customers solve tickets in the fastest way possible, closed 100 tickets, whatever it is. Find a way to add that to your resume. Find a way to highlight it in the story to the management team if you're applying for new jobs, or if you're looking for a raise or a promotion. Don't focus on the promotion like, I need the promotion to take care of the family. No, I need the promotion because I earned it, and this is what I've done.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Yeah, I think that's great. What I do, and this is something I learned in my first job. I joined the U.S. military. Was they did these annual reviews, and every year they documented what you did, and they took it up and considered that for promotions or raises or whatever. And so now I just it's simple. I just keep a note document, and I keep kind of bullets of what I do. You know, hey, I helped this customer. Stuff that if you don't write it down and you can't communicate it, nobody will ever know it happened. And you'll even forget it happened. A year later, you'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot. I got on that call late at night to help with an escalation and solve this customer problem. But you know, high intensity work environment, those things slip your mind. So yeah, it's super important. It's super important stuff. Well, Ramsey, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon, but thank you for the time and for sharing the awesome insight here.
It's my pleasure. It was fun, and I'm sad that yesterday I thought of a couple of gems and I completely forgot them today.
Hey, if you think of them, you let me know. We could splice them in. Like we were saying before, everybody, Ramsey, you can follow him he's active on LinkedIn. He's got a YouTube channel, and of course his podcast is amazing. We the Sales Engineers. Check him out. And let us know if you have any other questions or you got anything else you'd like to hear us talk about in the future. Maybe we'll think about it. All right.
Yeah. If you want to see Trevor torture me and make me take that AWS certification course, let us know.
That would be fun. Be careful what you ask for.
If I have time.
Awesome, man. Hey, if you'd like to see other interview style videos like this, let me know. I haven't done one before today. Curious to hear what you think. Subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you later.